know, this is kind of a little bit late, and but I've been trying to get a reaction after the bombing of nuclear facility in Iran by America. I was trying to get a feel of what Iranians living in America, the reaction, and what they think. And I know this is a mixed bag, and the Iranian community here in America. I mean, we don't have the huge community here in Minnesota, but it seems like they have a mix. Hey, Jay Shahiri.
Can you see me?
Yeah, I see you. You look good. My good. How you doing? How things going? My goodness.
Well, things look a little bit better. I was glad to hear about the news of a ceasefire in Gaza. I just heard that Hamas is considering it to accept it. So that's one piece of good news. Hope you'll get somewhere.
Really, I didn't hear anything. I was busy, and actually, where did you hear this news? Because
it's all over. It's all over last hour or so.
Okay. Well,
I hear it. I usually get notifications from a couple of international outlets like Al Jazeera.
Sure.
And, I heard on Minnesota Public Radio or National Public Radio that that the U.S. had proposed it.
Well,
and the U.S. won't propose it until they get the Israeli government's agreement. So maybe something is going on, but I heard it's a 60-day ceasefire.
Mm-hmm.
But any step is better than nothing. So any life saved is better than none.
Yeah, it's. I think we are moving now from the two-state solution to the two thugs solution. You know, just bullying and this and killing and using starvation and ethnic cleansing as a negotiating tools. As I was saying, I have tried to bring some of the Iranian. Someone from the Iranian community here in America to talk about what's going on, the latest bombing of the nuclear. First, the 12 days of bombing by the Israelis in Iran, and then the Trump or the American bombing of the nuclear or sites in Iran, and then retaliation by Iran. And I know this is a week later here, but I always come to you because nobody in the Iranian community actually is willing to come and speak publicly about what they think, what your action. You live with them, you talk to them, you are a community leader on so many levels. You devoted a lot of your time and resources on on peace movement and United Nations refugees. Been active there for years. So you have a good hold about the pulse of what the Iranian community here in America feel, think, or not thinking. So can you?
Well, I felt very sad, very disappointed that Israel made the attack on Iran. But to be honest with you, I wasn't surprised because they've been, especially the current leader of Israel, has been talking about this for like over 30 years, that he wants to do a regime change in Iran. He wants to weaken Iran, and he basically, scholars and news people who watch the situation very carefully, and diplomats, many of them have been saying that his intention is to get the U.S. involved in a war with Iran. I've seen evidence of that. It is unfortunate because I don't think anybody in Iran would like that war. In Israel, there are groups who believe in military might and violence to suppress and get rid of their opponents, adversaries, and enemies. But I think most people in Israel are also peace loving, but unfortunately, they're being manipulated and lied to by certain interest groups, and they're not being told the truth. I just watched an interview by the conservative American uh, newscaster, Mr. Tucker Carlson, an interview of the president of Iran, Dr. Pezeshkian. And I just listened to it like 3 times. It's like 25 minutes. But Tucker Carlson is getting really trashed for even doing the interview. And also in Iran, there are some radicals who put pressure on President Pezeshkian not to do the interview. So there are radicals and fanatics on all sides, in Israel, in Iran, in the US. But you know me, I'm for diplomacy, I'm for entreaty, I'm for finding peaceful solutions. And this is what I've been telling the Iranian American friends and relatives of mine, who some of them mistakenly, or I may say, because they don't have enough information, they thought that it would be a piece of cake for Israel or the United States to go bomb Iran, get rid of the regime, and put a pro-US, pro-Israel regime in power, and then these guys will live happily ever after. It's never happened that way. We've seen what happened to Iraq, to Afghanistan, to Libya. These countries, well, Afghanistan went to the arch enemies of the United States and Israel. Iraq, Libya, Syria, Somalia, Sudan, those countries which were, which the U.S., Israel wanted the U.S. to do a regime change or invade militarily. They're all in chaos. They're not really safe places. So I tell my Iranian friends that war is not the way, regime change is not the way, that change has to come democratically. And there were signs in the last 40 years that some moderates and Western oriented people, including the current president of Iran, he's a surgeon, he's a medical doctor who really believes in saving lives and trying to keep Iran independent. He's not in favor of Iran being in the pocket of Russia or China. But of course, he likes to have an independent foreign and domestic policy and get help from anybody who sends help. But I've been really not only disappointed, but really sad. And I've been grieving over how
Jay,
some
I know, there was some demonstration in downtown Minneapolis a couple of weeks ago, organized by somebody. She is a professor U of M. Her name was Sarkozy or
Sima Shahsari, yes, she's a
Shakhsari.
professor of women's studies.
Okay, and most of the people over there that were saying, no war on Iran and end U.S. imperialism. So you talked about the Iranian here that they want a regime change and encourage and call for a regime change from the American Israelis, and they don't want to do it themselves. They are away and they want somebody else to do it. And as you say, it never worked in Iraq or Libya or Afghanistan. So who are those people?
Well, you're right, but that demonstration you're talking about, I read, I wasn't there, but I read there were about 100 people. Some of them were of Iranian descent or background or nationality. Some of them were not. Some of them were the normal peace activists and human rights activists. I'm talking about Iranians who came here since 45, 50 years ago, just before the revolution. And a lot of them were the upper class and came here, or upper middle class. They became highly educated in various fields, engineering, medicine, business. Uh, but they have this notion that in order to make Iran great, let me say so, you have to get rid of this regime. Now, again, I know a group 2 years ago uh, gave up on President Biden because President Biden didn't want to get involved in a military action or get involved in forceful overthrow of the Iranian regime. So a group went to Israel and formed an alliance with Prime Minister Netanyahu. These are Iranian Americans who, a lot of them I know personally, and they really love Iran. They don't want anybody to die. They don't want war, but they have this mistaken belief that if they remove the regime Iran by force, then everybody will live happily ever after. They can come and go, and Iran will become just like Turkey or just like Western European countries, basically
Well,
overnight.
I understand, being against the Islamist government in Iran, and they wanna see a more secular, open Western. But what is
They publicly have radio stations and podcasts, and if you go online, for example, there's a large number of Iranian Americans or Iranians in the diaspora of U.S., Europe, maybe Australia, these Western countries, who really believe that the son of the last Shah, the king of Iran, should go back and become the king again. Now, I'm not saying they're wrong. What I'm saying is that if the people of Iran want that, they should get it democratically. If the Shah's son wants to go back and participate in elections and set up his own party
can
in
he?
a democratic way, I support it. But if it's going to be imposed through the power of the US or Israel or their militaries or their intelligence agencies, then that's not going to bring a long-lasting solution to Iran.
Go back to this, the son of the Jasha. Why this, his name, Raja Bahayavi? Bahavi?
Reza Pahlavi.
Okay. Why this guy is still viable after all what happened?
Well, as a as a person, as a as
I
an
know the name
individual,
has a
he
name,
has
but
a right. In my opinion, he has a right to set up a political party, to want to promote a certain system in Iran. That's why I say the left, the right, the middle, the communist, socialist, radical, Islamists, others, they have a right to engage in political dialogue in a peaceful, democratic way, whether it's in Iran or outside Iran. Now, if Reza Pahlavi's supporters want him to go back and be a leader in Iran, I don't see anything wrong with that personally.
no, I
But
understand that, but he is a made-up leader. I mean, this is a made-up of the West, not an organic,
well,
growing up, and try to change Iran, and try to help the Iranian to have a natural, organic, democratic. But you are sitting there and you don't hear about him until the West wants to, want us to hear about him. I mean, is he active? What he's done in the last
well,
50
he's
years?
yeah, well, if we look at his life in the last 46 years, actually, he was in Europe when the Iranian Revolution happened, and his father and mother uh, left Iran in early 79. Uh, but he considers himself the crown prince and now the Shah, the king of Iran in exile. And he has quite a number of supporters. And a lot of them are wealthy, powerful, Iranians, but I don't know. I haven't seen statistics. I don't know how many people are really behind him. Talking to his supporters, including some of my old college friends and all that, they think, oh, he's very popular and he should go back. My question is, okay, are we going to have democracy in Iran? Are we going to have elections? Are we going to have a king imposed by foreign powers, which means are we going to have somebody imposed by the US and Israel? Uh, uh, or any other outside power. So if there is democracy and he goes back, do you remember that the exiled king of Afghanistan,
Yeah.
after the US overthrew the Taliban in 2001, the exiled king of Afghanistan, who'd been overthrown basically by communist forces in the 70s, Zahir Shah was overthrown in 70s and fled. But after the US overthrew the Taliban in 71, shortly after that, I don't remember exactly where, Zahir Shah went back. And he went as a person who wanted to unite his people as a sign of tradition and culture. Uh, and then, of course, I don't remember how long he was there and what role did he play, but he traveled around and told the Afghans that they should unite and rebuild their country. So, if there, I believe Reza Pahlavi, if he wants to go back, should go back, but he should act democratically, and he should not try to overthrow anybody by force. He should not engage in any covert military operations with any foreign powers. But then you have to see what the people of Iran want. You know, I live here. I became an American 45 years ago. I still love Iran and I still love and respect people of Iran. But my allegiance is I live here. I took an oath to be an American. So I'd like to have peace. I'd like Iran to open up and be closer to the US and to Europe. I don't like Iran to be under any foreign power, whether it's Chinese or Russians or anybody in between or a coalition of them, because that way then we'll keep having all these problems around the world. And if the answer is forceful military overthrow or military invasion, so we'll keep killing each other for another 7,000 years, and that's what our history shows.
Isn't it the main when his father came to power the same way after a democratically elected government of Mossadegh, and we know what happened when you got rid of regime change and you brought the Shah, and he stayed for over 30 years, and there was not any democracy there. There was, he ruled the country as a police state. And then came the Islamic revolutions. We're trying to make this the same mistake again. Try to reimpose a puppet made up by the West. They always say pro the West. I don't know what that means. The pro the West and anti the West. I don't know what the West is. The West is fighting each other. Where is the West anyway? I mean,
Oh, the West has meant since World War II, 1945, the West, or maybe 1941, the beginning of World War II. In my humble opinion, the West means the US and its European allies, Britain.
understand but when you look at Europe and Americans, when you look at Spain now, that's against the war and against what's happening
Well,
in
yeah,
Gaza is the
things are
West.
changing now.
Yeah,
Things are changing.
Ireland is it the West? Ukraine is it the West? Is Israel is the West committing genocide? So the West, I think that's something you can say about Trump. That he did away with the West. He's saying NATO overlapped their own usefulness, and how the NATO was 13 country now is 20 some countries, and everybody wants to join. So it doesn't make any sense anyway. But I mean, to repeat what happened in the 60s or 50s, late 50s, I cannot imagine how those Iranians, let alone the West, let alone whatever the so-called West or the American, whatever, people who are not paying attention to history, they want to repeat what the CIA did in the 50s, in the 60s in Iran, the same thing. So how could it be a viable option to the Iranian community that they are familiar with their history?
Well, I remember reading about Socrates, the great Greek philosopher. 2,400 years ago, he lived. I am very interested because he and his students, Plato and Aristotle, probably were the greatest philosophers of the West the world has ever known. And of course, their ideas got into Judaism, Christianity, and Islam as well, uh, because they lived so long ago before these religions really came about. Socrates cautions us about this whole concept of democracy, because if he says if you're going to have a pure democracy, then every individual wants his or her way, and that's not possible. So that's why his student came up with the idea of a republic, where you elect representatives to a local government, to a regional government, to a national government. So democracy has its limits. We cannot impose our views. When I talk to Iranian Americans or some Iranians on the phone, it looks like I'm right, you're wrong. And that is really, to me, is the danger. Why don't we respect the other side? That's what I said. If people of Iran get together through any democratic mechanism, any system of voting, even though it may be limited, and say they want Iran to have a monarch again, like Japan, like United Kingdom, like Norway, that's fine. If people choose to have it, and then depends how much power they want to give to that king. Most kings nowadays have very limited powers. I mean, the king in Japan hardly has any political power. But then you got to have a system where work gets done, and people from all aspects, all groups are represented, and that's what worries me. Going back to the overthrow of Dr. Mossadegh, who was the democratically elected prime minister of Iran in 1953, we got to backtrack a little bit. During World War II, in 1941, the last Shah's father, Reza Shah, who had really been helped to come to power by the British Empire. In the year 1920, they helped him become the strong man of Iran, because Iran was so important to the British, not only because of the opposition to the Tsarist Russia, and now in 1920 to Communist Russia, to the Soviet Union. There was competition for the control of the area for access to Persian Gulf. But also in 1908, the British discovered oil in southwest Iran, the first place in the whole Middle East. So that oil was so important to them. Actually, there are some historians who are saying Britain got the upper hand in World War I and in World War II because they had access to petroleum. In World War I, 1908, they discovered oil. 1914, World War I breaks out. The British very rapidly converted their ships from using coal into petroleum, and their ships went faster and were more efficient, and they got the upper hand over the German navy. And so Iran was so important. So they helped Reza Shah, who was a colonel trained by the Russians. He was a Kazakh-trained military man in north of Iran. They helped him seize power because Iran was now too important to let it fall into chaos under a declining dynasty of the Qajar. So what happened is the British helped his father Reza to come to power. In 1925, they agreed that he declared himself the king of Iran. And then he became, according to most reports, very nationalistic. Yes, he became very dictatorial, but he opened up Iran to uh, Western technology and to industrialization, and he became close. He became a good friend of Mustafa Kemal in Turkey, who was rebuilding Turkey after the destruction of the Ottoman Empire. So Reza Shah was in power, and then he started opening up. And people, when he said he allowed women to go to school for the first time, and he allowed the Germans and the Belgians and the French to come and help build Iranian education system, governmental system. So the British somehow got angry at him, and they were waiting for a chance to get rid of him. So in 1941, Reza Shah had declared neutrality, and he had, according to most reports, about 2,000 German engineers working in Iran. They had built the railroads from Persian Gulf to Caspian Sea. They were building a steel mill, and the West didn't like that. So they wanted to use Iranian railroads to carry arms and ammunition, medical supply, food to Soviet Union, because the eastern front of Europe was occupied by German forces. But the British ships came into Persian Gulf. So they wanted to use the Iranian railroads, and Reza Shah said, no, I'm neutral. I'm not going to let you use my country. Uh, so they overthrew him. And they put his they occupied Iran, the Soviets from the north, the British from the south. Americans landed paratroopers. They occupied Iran, arrested Reza Shah, sent him to exile in South Africa, and made his 21-year-old son, who'd basically grown up in Switzerland, as the king of Iran. So from 1941 to 1951, Iran moved toward democracy. I mean, there's plenty of stuff on the internet. People can go and Google
No,
nowadays.
when we hear it from you, has more credibility. Do you think this is what's happening now? We only have a few minutes left here.
Well,
Bring it.
what's happening is Iran moved toward democracy, and Dr. Mossadegh came and said he wanted to nationalize the oil because that's what Iranians wanted, because 100% of Iranian oil, that means all the oil out of the country of Iran belonged to the British Petroleum. So people were not happy. They said, it's our oil. Why doesn't it belong to the British? So Mossadegh wanted to negotiate and get a bigger percentage of the profit. And that's why the British didn't like it, and they wanted to get rid of him. They boycotted Iran, but they didn't have money and resources to go get rid of him, overthrow him. So they came to Americans, and there's plenty of evidence that they probably lied to President Eisenhower that Mossadegh was a communist. Most evidence shows that he was not a communist. Actually, the communists didn't like him in
Well,
Iran.
even if he was a communist, but all about democracy. It's all about resources and regime change. So this was Jay Shahidi. He's Iranian Americans active in peace movement and refugees uh, organization, United Nations. He was talking about the reaction of some of the Iranian living in the United States and the reaction to the latest attack on Iran by the Israelis and by the Americans, and the latest bombing of the three new nuclear sites. Give us some background about this, conflict between the West, that they say, and the Iranians since. Before even World War One, and this is an old story, and reinstalling puppet regime, a Shah, imposing a Shah, and toppling a democratically elected government in '53, Mossadegh. So this is not all about democracy. It's all about resources and influences. And I know we were cut off, and I haven't been able to reconnect with him, but we'll try to get him again, and continue with this conversation. So we'll leave it at that, and we'll talk to you next week. Please log onto our website, follow us, and share, and we'll see you